interest of the special guest whose knowledge is as deep as the ocean and their heart is as broad as sky. So it's time to hail such a guest of honor of this gracious day. May I take privilege to welcome our eminent resource person, Dr. Prantik Banerjee. So who is a professor of English, Hislop College, Nagpur. So he is an enthusiastic teacher, poet, and a short story writer. His really short story and poems are well known, a renowned one, and he has got an award too. He was honored with the title Poet of Fortnight by late Kamaladas, the winner of Sahitya Academy Award. He is a recipient of CLR International Award for his renowned collection of short stories. He has published include 8 books, 10 book chapters, and 41 research papers in peer-reviewed journals. His articles regularly appear in Times of India. He has been a former member of Board of Studies at RTM Nagpur University. He is a NAC expert, research trainer, eminent speaker who has delivered endowment talks in USA, Chennai, and Bangalore universities. Really, we are very much gifted to have you, sir. So amidst your busy schedule, you make your presence here. So really, we are very much blessed and fortunate to have you in this occasion. So I am very much pleased to extend the gracious, inclusive welcome to you, sir. It's my great joy to welcome our eminent professor, Dr. A. Suresh, Associate Professor of English, Nodal Officer, NIRF, and Students Redressal Cell. He is the convener. I welcome you, sir, and I also thank you for your support for organizing this event in a wonderful way. So I extend a hearty welcome to you, sir. At this juncture, I would like to welcome Dr. K. Kaviyarasu, Organizing Secretary, Assistant Professor of English, VKC, Vivekananda College of College. Really, his work, it's a remarkable one, and he has taken initiative to organize this event and make it a mega. Diligent task with all devotion, dedication, and determination. I'm happy to extend a very warm welcome and thank you for your significant contribution. I'm very much delighted to welcome Dr. K. Sumati, former head, Department of English, Vivekananda College, Agasteeswaram, who is an eminent, efficient, enthusiastic personality. I'm very much delighted to extend a very warm welcome to you, ma'am. Great pride and honor. I would like to welcome all the dedicated team of faculty members of our department. Dr. A. Suresh, Associate Professor of English, Dr. M. Sandil Kumar, Associate Professor of English, Mr. H. Praveen Maria Henry, Assistant Professor of English, Dr. S. Rajaprabha, Assistant Professor of English, Mr. K. Adinarayan, Assistant Professor of English, Ms. Nitya, Assistant Professor of English, Dr. K. Kaviyarasu, Assistant Professor of English, Ms. J.M. Kaushalya, Assistant Professor of English, so who offer their valuable contribution in all the endeavors. I am happy to extend a joyful welcome to you all. Finally, but more prominently, I would like to welcome professors from various colleges, universities, research scholars, and student participants who spared and invested their precious time in attending this international online seminar. So every one of you would be a daisy in the garden. So who adds brightness and cheer to this event? Once again, I extend a very warm welcome to all the participants who are from India, Nigeria, Oman, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Egypt, Indonesia, and Malaysia. I'm really very happy to welcome all the outside participants and the participants, those who taken part from India, all over India, they have taken part. Once again, I extend a very warm welcome to all the participants. Let me conclude with the great lines of the Italian philosopher Pico. So man who is permitted to obtain what he designs and to be what he wills. Cherish every second of the seminar, enjoy every moment of getting showered in the fountain of knowledge. Once again, I welcome all the dignitaries for sparing their precious time with us and gracing the occasion with your presence. So thank you, one and all.
Thank you, madam, for those warm and inspiring words of welcome. Your vision and dedication truly sets the tone for today's seminar. Now, it's my pleasure to invite Dr. T.S. Jayanti, our respected principal in charge of our college, to deliver the presidential address. Dr. Jayanti's leadership has been a guiding light for our institution. Her encouragement and steadfast vision has empowered both faculty and students, creating an environment where academic excellence flourishes. Over to you, madam.
Yes, sir. Respected Chief Guest and Resource Person, Professor Prantik Banerjee, esteemed Chairperson, Dr. G. Parvati, Learned Convener, Dr. P. Sujata, Vibrant Organizing Secretary, Dr. K. Kaviyarasu, distinguished faculty members, honored guests, dear students, and all the participants joining us virtually from across India and abroad. Good evening. It gives me immense pleasure to address you all today at this international online seminar organized by the Department of English. On behalf of Vivekananda College, I extend my warm greetings to all the distinguished participants who have joined us from 31 states and union territories within India, as well as from Bangladesh, Indonesia, Malaysia, Egypt, Oman, Nigeria, and Afghanistan. Your presence here today underscores the universal appeal to the topic, and it is an honor for our college to host such a diverse and distinguished audience. I would like to appreciate the tireless efforts of our Department of English under the able leadership of Dr. P. Sujata. Special recognition is due to Dr. K. Kaviyarasu, the organizing secretary of this seminar, whose vision and dedications have brought this program to life. Dr. Kaviyara's commitment to expanding our academic horizons and elevating our college's name across the world is truly commendable. In a time where technology floods every aspect of our lives, discussing the intersection of literature, culture, and artificial intelligence is both timely and essential. It is interesting to know how arts continue to evolve and retain its relevance even with the technological innovations of the 21st century. I encourage all participants to engage actively, share your perspectives, and immerse yourself in the wealth of knowledge being shared. I am sure that the insights from our distinguished resource person, Professor Prantik Banerjee, will leave a lasting impact on each of you. Once again, I express my heartfelt appreciations to the Department of English, to Dr. Kaviyarasu, and to all those who have worked behind the scenes to make this seminar a reality. Thank you, and I wish you all an enlightening and engaging seminar. Thank you.
Thank you, madam, for your insightful and motivating words and recognitions. Your leadership and vision continuously inspire us to reach us new heights, and your guidance truly enriches our academic community. So now we move on to the core of our seminar, the technical session. So it is my privilege to introduce our distinguished resource person and the chairperson. So Dr. Prantik Banerjee, the resource person of the day, is a professor of English at Hislop College, Nagpur. He is a scholar who brings literature to life in ways that resonate with both timeless tradition and the pulse of the modern world. As he often inspires his students, I quote in his words, "To break the rules is to begin the journey towards true creativity," end quote. So his classroom is a space where young minds are encouraged to engage with language in bold, unconventional ways, making them romantic with literature. So Dr. Banerjee is not only a celebrated academic, but also a prolific writer. He is the author of the 2 acclaimed poetry collections, Postscript on Missing Keys and Crossing the Line, with his work featured in esteemed publications like The Journey of the Poetry Society of India by Indian Literature Sahitya Academy and Pen International. Recognized by Kamala Das as, I quote, the poet of the fortnight, he has also seen his works shortlisted in the All India Poetry Competition held by the British Council. During the pandemic, Dr. Pandemic crafted his award-winning collection of short stories, The Keeper of the Death, which won the CLR International Award for Best Fiction in 2021. And his essays span topics as diverse as viruses, cyborgs, AI, and pop culture, offering insights in the very themes we explore today. In this digital age, he has proven himself to be, as Wordsworth rightly said, I quote, a lover of wisdom and knowledge, which still allures us to the world beyond, end quote. So Dr. Banerjee's scholarly contribution include 8 publications in the form of book, 41 publications in the form of research papers, and numerous book chapters, many of which are prescribed as textbooks in various universities such as Columbia, Princeton, and Michigan. He has crafted syllabi in pioneering fields like trauma studies, disability studies, medical humanities, and Shakespeare for the 21st century, influencing academic thoughts across institutions. As a dedicated educator, certified HRD trainer, and academic counselor, Dr. Banerjee brings his passion for teaching and creative writing to young scholars around the world. He has been a keynote speaker at universities from Rooster in the USA to Royal Bhutan University, showing us in the words of Ralph Waldo Emerson that the mind once stretched by a new idea never returns to its original dimension. So we are honored to have you, sir. And before we get into the session, definitely it is my privilege to introduce the chairperson of the session also, who is an eminent scholar. So I'm proud and honored to introduce the chairperson of this session, Dr. G. Parvati, Assistant Professor in the Department of English at Bishop Weber College, Trichy. Dr. Parvati is a distinguished scholar in English literature with her PhD research focusing on the quest of authentic womanhood in the novels of Doris Lessing. This exploration of identity, agency, and self-discovery aligns closely with today's themes as we look how literature and arts continue to evolve and reflect the complexities of the modern world. Dr. Parvati's academic contribution extends across a wide spectrum of literary themes, including British fiction, feminist discourses, and postmodernism. She has presented insightful research findings on various topics ranging from nature-driven poetics of T.S. Eliot to the surrealism of Franz Kafka. So amidst us, we have such great eminent persons who are there going to rock the show. So I am privileged to call upon Dr. G. Parvati Madam to lead this session. So audience, please join me in welcoming both the resource person and the chairperson on stage for our discussion. Over to you, Madam. Parvati Madam. Madam, your audio is mute. Madam, please unmute. Your audio is still mute.
Yeah, I was not able to
Yes,
unmute
please.
myself all this time. I'm very sorry. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Respectful and warm greetings to all the members of the academic and administrative fraternity of Vivekananda College, esteemed principal, beloved head of the department, the organizer, Dr. Kaviyarasu, all members of the teaching fraternity of the Department of English, Vivekananda College, respected and resourceful speaker of the day, and this august gathering of participants. I'm indeed delighted and honored to be part of this international seminar on the topic Arts in the Time of Hamlet's Android Phone and AI's Aristotle. I thank the organizer, Dr. Kaviyarasu, for giving me this opportunity. Dr. Kavi sirs and my journey spans more than 2 decades. We shared the same alma mater, we studied at the same college, and then we were colleagues for a very long time. And I've always known Dr. Kavi sir for his technical expertise. He was the the techno-savvy faculty of the department, and no wonder he has organized a seminar on this. The very topic packs a punch, and it's a refreshing breath of fresh air for people like us who are always caught in the doldrums of the academia. Well, we live in an age of technology where technology and AI find its ubiquitous presence everywhere in every walk of life. A man's reach should exceed his grasp. What's a heaven for? Said Robert Browning. And true to these words, mankind has ever since been punching above their weight to make a giant leap in every front, in every facet of life. M.H. Abrams, in his celebrated essay, Orientation to Critical Theories, in his book Mirror and the Lamp, talks about four coordinates, four art coordinates, which he uses as four different approaches to studying, analyzing, interpreting, evaluating, and appreciating works of art and literature. They are nothing but the universe, the arts, artist, and audience. Today, all these four coordinates actually are pervaded by technology and artificial intelligence. Man-machine interface has become the order of the day, as man's tryst with technology is having far-reaching consequences, especially for academicians like us who are able to see it both for its promises and perils. The topic of today's international seminar rings very true and all the more relevant and significant. And to deliver this topic, we have none other than an accomplished academician, a versatile scholar and writer, Dr. Prantik Banerjee. Sir, many of your works actually take me back to the celebrated Keki Daruwala sir's works, Keeper of the Dead, Crossing the River, everything. I was actually awe-inspired to read your bio, your profile actually. Thank you very much, sir. Sir is a writer, he's a poet, a novelist, a playwright, an award-winning writer who is amidst us, and he is also professor at Hislop College, Nagpur. We are indeed grateful to you, sir, for having been with us here to deliver a lecture which is phenomenally relevant to the academic fraternity today. Thank you very much, sir, for your presence, and I invite you to deliver your lecture. Over to you, sir.
Sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. For a minute, I was facing a quandary. A teacher, it's very difficult to mute a teacher, right? And only technology can do that. So at my end, I was trying to unmute myself, not realizing that the host has not allowed me to do so. But thank you so much, Dr. Parvati. Before I dive into today's theme or today's subject, my gratitude to Vivekananda College, Kanniyakumari. I mean, the minute I hear Kanniyakumari, it kind of evokes so many non-AI generated images of virgin beaches, majestic hills, and pristine rivers, and of course the Vivekananda Memorial Rock. I come from a place, so in a sense, what the organizing secretary of today's international online seminar has done is to bring people together, crossing time zones. I'm told there are participants who have joined from other countries as well. But also for me personally, this virtual, and I mean a virtual leap from the center of India. Incidentally, Nagpur happens to be at the midpoint, the geographical midpoint of India. To make this leap on a virtual platform from the center of India, we have something called a zero milestone, to the southernmost tip, which is Kanniyakumari, to the southernmost tip of the Indian peninsula, is something that requires a leap of imagination for want of a physical gathering or a physical meet. But I will hold Dr. Kaviyarasu to a promise that he has given me that sometime I will be in Kanniyakumari in person. But thank you so much to the principal and to the Department of English for hosting this event on something that I believe is very is something that we are constantly grappling or engaging with in recent times. Friends, well, I put a bit of thought when Dr. Kaviyarasu invited me as a speaker. He asked me over the phone what I would like to speak on. And I thought I would do something that has been quite a buzzword among the academia, even as we try to make sense with the deep and immersive reach of artificial intelligence and computational technologies. We also have something now which has come into vogue called digital humanities. I thought, why not take up something that that you and I are already grappling with, trying to get used to the pervasive as well as, shall I say, the invasive reach of technology in our classroom spaces, in our research frontiers, as well as the kind of deliberations that we do on such online platforms. You know, being a teacher, let me start on a note, on a personal note. Being a teacher, I've always envied Alexander the Great. Why, if you ask me? Well, the answer is very simple. Because he had Aristotle as his personal tutor. I mean, in the ancient world, in the world in an age of antiquity, Aristotle, as historians tell us, knew pretty much everything that there was to know. I mean, even better, I say, Aristotle knew the mind of his favorite pupil, Alexander. I mean, Aristotle understood what things interested Alexander before he became Alexander the Great, by the way. Aristotle knew what Alexander knew or did not know. And Aristotle also knew what kind of explanations perhaps Alexander preferred to make sense of a world that he was yet to conquer. With Aristotle, friends, as his teacher and his mentor, it is Alexander who had a knowledge of the world at his command. No wonder today when we read about Aristotle and his mentorship or his tutorship of Alexander, no wonder historians call Aristotle the first teacher, the very first teacher, or shall we call him the prototype, and I deliberately emphasize this word, the prototype of the human teacher. Why I say this? Well, let's fast forward. Let's fast forward across the millennia to today's age of artificial intelligence. Let me also, we don't have to be a crystal ball grazer, nor do we have to be a clairvoyant to predict that, Tech 3.0 might very soon give us our first automated AI tutor. I mean, I dare say this automated AI tutor, as and when it happens, and it's going to happen sooner than later, I predict, it may even be called AI Aristotle. Imagine, let us for a minute imagine what AI Aristotle might do for us, what it might do for our students, what it might do to our teaching learning spaces. For example, what I can speculate, I can only hazard a guess, because right now, thankfully, we have the human Aristotle in let us say, in a metamorphosized or a muted form like you and I, we the teachers. But then AI Aristotle, when it comes, when it arrives, it might allow us to us as well as our students to read, to scan, to summarize, to write assignments pronto, to make reels, to play Hamlet or to watch Hamlet and immerse in it as an interactive game as well. My point is that AI Aristotle may make it possible for young learners, the millennials, whom we call, to experience Hamlet as a multimedia performance. And the next part, friends, is crucial. While it may allow our young minds to experience Hamlet, let's say, as a multimedia performance, would it really make the classroom or even a teacher redundant? The core of my talk today, friends, is going to be speculative in nature. And I probably will be throwing up more questions for you to engage with, for you to perhaps answer or give responses. And honestly, therefore, I begin on a note of Aristotle, the man who asked questions, right, to confess that many of the questions that I will grapple with, that I will bring forth in my talk, I have no answers. I still have no answers, right? But then, wait a minute. I mean, this fictional scenario that I created, that I imagined, well, is actually a ChatGPT fantasy. I mean, and before this ChatGPT scenario lifts you either into the realm of euphoria or maybe pushes you into an abyss of existential despair, depends on whether you are all in favor of AI or whether you would rather do without AI. Depends on your side of the story. There is something, however, there is something for us to pause and think, and I should begin my talk with this. Look, in Feb 2024, I mean, yeah, I think I got the date right. Yeah, somewhere in Feb 2024, that is this year, as recent as this year, Google changed the name of its AI, what we call a large language model. Hereafter, I will refer to it as LLMs, from having called it Bard to calling it Gemini. When I
sorry to interrupt, sir, have you started the slideshow?
No, hang on.
Oh, sorry.
No, hang on, Kavirasu. You call me old school or old fashioned. My presentation comes later. I think I have more points to tell you without the prop of a slideshow.
Sure.
Let's be a little more patient before I share my a few slides that I would like to show. Right. And this time I know that you are getting anxious that maybe I forgot, because I did so in many of my talks in the refresher course. But no, I have deliberately put the presentation or the slide share on hold. Right. It's like saying that Aristotle, in its new millennial avatar, the Aristotle AI, I put him on hold. Or shall I say, put it on hold? Let's not anthropomorphize. Ooh, that's quite a word. I'm getting tangled up. So let's not. Let's wait. Coming back to what I was saying. Think of Feb 2024. Google changed the name of AI from Bard to Gemini. Now, what was interesting for me at that point was to ask a very simple question. Why did Google do it? And then I read a couple of comments and a couple of interviews given by who else but Sundar Pichai. And it was Sundar Pichai's response was very, very revealing for me. He said something very interesting. He said that, that the word Bard that he had chosen to name the AI evoked too much of a persona. Now, notice what he's saying, that the word bard, when applied or when naming an AI, evoked too much of a persona. And frankly, he said, Google didn't want this. It didn't want its AI to be mistaken for a conversational creative partner, nor for an animated interlocutor. Imagine Pichai saying this. Now, this becomes interesting, therefore. Personally, when I read that he had renamed Bard AI as Bard, or rather Gemini, AI Gemini, personally, as I felt I was happy. I was happy he did what he did, because had he not done so, friends, Pichai would have earned the anger, the ire of the bard. Remember what Shakespeare willed his epitaph on his tombstone. What was his epitaph? What was the epitaph on his tombstone? He said, or rather, the epitaph read, "Good friend, for Jesus' sake, forbear to dig the dust enclosed here. Blessed be the man that spares these stones, and cursed be he who moves my bones." This is Shakespeare's epitaph, right? And Shakespeare wanted, he wrote these lines as an for his epitaph in his will. So, Pichai almost would have sinned in doing something profane, entering or excavating the bard's bones by naming Google's AI as Bard. But then he saved himself. He saved himself by renaming it as Gemini. Pichai would also have annoyed countless of teachers of Hamlet, like me, who teach all things, who have been teaching all things Shakespeare, whether it is his plays, his poems, or his memes, or fridge magnets that carry his quotations. Why? I'll come to that a little later. But I guess, when I carried this news into my classroom with my students, I guess, they might have pulled out their Android or their iPhones and called, and some of them called AI in the fashion of Horatio. They called AI this wondrous strange. Remember Horatio's comment from Hamlet, this wondrous strange, to which I, like Hamlet, exclaimed, "There are more things in heaven and earth, dear students, than are dreamt of in your AI." So, friends, it is this large fictional context of AI's Aristotle and Hamlet's Android phone that I wish to interrogate something more serious, academic, and engaging, hopefully, the impact of AI on our ideas, traditional, conventional, classical, modern, or even postmodern ideas of an author, a reader, and a work. So in my talk, I wish to turn our critical lens on what do we make? What do we make of authorship? What do we make of readership? What do we understand by textuality in the age of artificial intelligence and chatbots? Particularly as we all know that AI has been rapidly transforming it has been altering our notions of creativity, our notions of imagination, or even authorship. So in my talk, what I wish, or what I will try to do for you, is to establish some connections that are not so obvious, at first sight, between what I call two turning points in the history of art, literature, and literary theory. What are these two turning points? Well, one, the post-structuralist turn of the last century. The other, what I call the AI generative turn of this century. So specifically, friends, I wish to show you how the field-altering ideas of author, reader, and text as enunciated, as formulated by Roland Barthes and Michel Foucault way back in the 1960s, how these ideas have deep connections, have connections that are very, very intrinsic, very, very intricate connections with the ways in which artificial intelligence and large language models, the LLMs today, are impacting. They are impacting those very same ideas that were propounded by the post-structuralist thinkers in the 1960s. So, in a sense, in the course of my talk, what I also wish to do is to show you that there are both continuities as well as discontinuities caused by artificial AI's, disruptive power in the field of art, literature, and literary theory. So this is the broad framework on which I'm going to anchor some of my ideas. So, all right, yeah. Now let me share my screen. Dr. Kavirasu,
yes, it is visible. Yes, sir.
All right. Okay. By the way, I mean, nothing of that tech-savvy slide. I think it is a bit tech-savvy because among my only tech-savvy friend is Kavirasu himself. So I took inspiration from the brochure, from that wonderful brochure that I guess, he created to pull some images from AI. Right. So the credit for the opening slide doesn't go to me. It goes to AI Aristotle. All right. Just give me a minute. Yeah. All right. So coming back to, November 2022, friends, is already being called the Black Swan moment of this century. I mean, why is the date so important? November 2022? Well, many of us will remember that it was when a private company named OpenAI launched ChatGPT. Since then, language generative AI programs have been all the buzz, both in the industry as well as in our academia. It's been grabbing headlines, and already several what I call tetrabytes of arguments have been made, both in favor of artificial intelligence as well as against it. I mean, the reaction or the responses, particularly from the academia to artificial intelligence and its mediation in teaching learning, well, has drawn extreme responses. I mean, the pendulum, you could say, has swung from sort of utopian celebration of artificial intelligence, the potential of artificial intelligence for transforming life and work, to the other extreme. People have been talking about the specters, about its impact on human creativity, its negative impact on human creativity, and even jobs for that matter. So some people think of ChatGPT as nothing more than an upgraded version of Wikipedia. Others consider it as a threat to thinking, to creativity, to artistic endeavors, etc., etc. So, there has been a lot of stuff out there, both in the social media as well as it has drawn the attention of prominent social thinkers and cultural commentators, right from Zizek to our own Gayatri Chakravarti Spivak. So many of them have dismissed it as a content copier. They have dismissed artificial intelligence as a content copier, a language imitator. Others, like I said, there are now quite a debate, and that is why today's topic, thinking about it, thinking aloud with you on this topic, makes it interesting. This whole seminar interesting. Others have welcomed it for its sort of super abilities to produce linguistic and semantic texts that are clear and cogent. So, so far as speculation concerns, I told you that the entire pitch of my talk is going to be speculative in nature. Let me also ask for you and with you, can AI be the next Marquez, the next Dali, the next Mozart or Beethoven? I know that we have something called Dali Dali or Dali E. All right, I'm familiar with that. But let me probe a little further. I mean, can machines be so creative as to replace the notion of the artist as an individual genius? Will AI write the next best-selling novel? Will it win the next Booker Prize? My entry point, therefore, to start today's deliberation is to think of the question that I've put on the slide. Is ChatGPT a tool, a toy, or a travesty? And I would like to take you back, as I said, to two groundbreaking essays that were written in the 1960s that I believe have radically transformed our ideas, the way we continue to think about author, reader, and writing. So clearly, I mean, the two authors, with a qualifier, I will say, I'll put the word author within quote, within inverted commas. So I wish to take up Roland Barthes' The Death of an Author and Michel Foucault's What is an Author, and place them alongside the ongoing debate on artificial intelligence's linguistic and semantic potentiality, or for that matter, the future of storytelling itself. Because I do believe that to engage in this conversation, I do believe that the intrusion of artificial intelligence and all things that we call digital technologies or computational technologies, especially in our realm, that is literature, our literary spaces, should make us return to Barthes and Foucault's formulations about who is an author, or what is an author, who is a reader, or what is a reader, what is a text. Although we are separated today, even as we discuss, we are separated from their formulations by more than 60 years in time. But I think we need to return. We need to go back to these two groundbreaking essays, which are the focus of my talk. So first, a quick recap. I know many of us are also teaching these two seminal essays, both perhaps in your graduate honors course or your master's course. But a quick recap perhaps is always good. So, what is it that made Barthes and Foucault's formulations about authorship and readership so special? I mean, if you remember The Death of the Author, this seminal essay, this field-altering essay written in 1968 by Roland Barthes, I mean, what was he doing? He was kind of apocalyptically, I mean, before that, Nietzsche had declared the death of God, right? And then we had Roland Barthes coming in 1968 declaring the death of the author, right? So this was a kind of an apocalypse, for though we were perhaps not born then, but it was an apocalyptic thing to declare the death of the author. Because, however, Barthes was not, of course, meaning the physical death of the author. He wasn't talking about the death of the author as an individual genius. I mean, he was actually attacking, in his pronouncements about the death of the author, he was attacking an entire tradition of Western thought that had idealized the author as a sacrosanct figure, as a figure of reverence, as an undisputed figure of meaning making. And so Barthes was challenging the figure of the author as God the Father. He was challenging the author's sole authority behind the work. He was challenging the idea, the notion of the author as a sole arbiter of its meaning, as God is to our universe, maybe. So, going back to the essay was something of an eye opener for me personally when I was preparing for this talk, because what was Barth arguing? Barth was arguing that the author's biography, his intention and purpose, there were so many references made from Wordsworth to Thoreau in the opening remarks. We do tend to talk about transcendentalism in terms of intention and purpose. We talk about Walden and we talk about Emerson's Oversoul in terms of reflecting, perhaps, when we introduce these writers and their texts in the classroom. We think about transcendental philosophy and we go back to what Emerson and Thoreau did, what was the background of American transcendentalism. So we kind of locate what Barth was doing was challenging the way in which we situate a work. Notice that he keeps saying work, which we will dispute, not calling it a work, but a text. But he was kind of challenging or defying this tendency of us to place or locate or situate a work in its history, in its context, in its historical, social, and cultural context, because he felt that in doing so, we were kind of limiting its interpretation. We were limiting its interpretation because he believed that a text is autotelic. It generates its own narratives. And I'm now deliberately using the word generates, because artificial intelligence and chatbots are essentially, they work on the principle of generative tendencies, isn't it? So he was making a crucial distinction between a work and a text, because Barth wrote, let me see whether I have the quote on the slide. Yeah. Yeah. Can you see the third quote? The author is thought to nourish the book, which is to say that he exists before it, he thinks, suffers, lives for it. In complete contrast, the modern scripter is born simultaneously with the text and is no way equipped with a being preceding or exceeding the writing. Notice that when we come to this crucial passage from the essay Death of an Author, he's already making two very important distinctions, one between the author and a scripter, and the other between a work and a text. But then I don't want to dwell too much on that, because most of us already know it. But then what Barth also wrote is that, that to give a text an author is to impose a limit on that text. And that is why in pronouncing the death of the author, what he was actually doing was to liberate the text. Also, he was talking about the active role of the reader, that the reader was no longer somebody who was a passive recipient of the meanings of a text, that the reader, in fact, had a very, very dynamic, interactive role to play. So he was disputing quite a few notions about what we conventionally have thought about an author, a reader, and a text. A year after Roland Barthes published The Death of the Author came another landmark essay, another field-altering essay, and that was, of course, Michel Foucault's essay, What is an Author? Now, the word, in the essay, Foucault was not merely asking who, but what. And he was therefore not substituting a personal pronoun who by an object pronoun. There was a reason why he was replacing a personal pronoun who, that is, who is an author? Well, to ask who is an author is to give an agency and a subjectivity to the author, but by substituting the who-ness of an author to the what-ness of an author, what Michel Foucault was doing was to depersonalize the author, to deconstruct the author, much like Barthes had done before him. So he too, in a sense, Foucault was walking the same tread as Barthes. Both of them were dismantling the whole Western tradition of the metaphysics of what we call logocentrism, one that celebrates the author as a transcendental signified, the author as a single originator of a text, meaning the author who imposes all the significance to a particular text. So they were dismantling or debunking this Western metaphysics of the notion of an author. So in a counter move, both were making counter moves. Foucault reduced the author, deified the cultist author to what he termed the author function. Instead of who, he answered who is an author or what is an author. But he gave the answer in the form of, well, there is no such thing as who is an author. There is a what is an author, and the author is nothing more than an author function. For that, he meant that, he was talking about the very instrumentality. An author function is one that operates to serve the instrumentality of writing itself. The author, he said, was a function of discourse. We all know now, we are familiar with these terms: logocentrism, the metaphysics of presence, the transcendental signifier, and also what a discourse, what Foucault meant by a discourse. So I'm not going to take you down that path, which you all are familiar with. But the moot point that Foucault was making was that the author was a kind of an underlying principle or an organizing principle, bringing together many voices, the multivalency of a text that is not restricted to a single unitary meaning given by the traditional author, but the scripter who believes in the valency and multivocality of a text. So, Therefore, Foucault went on to say that, that authorship has a history, because authorship is an idea, much like madness is an idea. Criminality is an idea. Sexuality is an idea. And once we know Foucault with his archaeology of knowledge, and what he was doing in the archaeology of knowledge is to create histories of ideas, madness as an idea, criminality as an idea, sexuality as an idea, in order to show that much like these ideas or these concepts, authorship has a genealogy. Authorship has a genealogy. It is not universal, it is not homogeneous, and it is not standard. The authorship, if the author is a figurehead for Foucault and as well as for Barthes, then authorship has a genealogy. And that is why the idea of an author, far from being constant and universal, according to them, the function of an author, the definition of an author, the identity of an author also changes from time to time. So, for example, in medieval times, you could say that authors were not even seen as individual creators of original works. And therefore, most of the books, why medieval times? Most of the books from medieval times, let's say to the 16th or even 17th century, many of these books that were published once a print media became prolific with Gutenberg's printing press, many of these texts were published anonymously. Authors back in the medieval times were treated much like what Barthes and Foucault were arguing in the 20th century, that they were no more than amanuenses and archivists or scriptors. Therefore, to call someone an author in modern times is, according to them, was to interpolate him in the discourse of authorship. What did he mean? What did they mean by the discourse of authorship? Well, think about it. The act of writing, which is, of course, by which we identify an author to be, also, by the way, includes the publishing industry, the book publishing industry, book launches, signing sprees, promotional tours, television shows, prize and award-winning functions, the critical reception of the writing of the author, social media reels and literary festivals, and so many other narratives. So all of these together make the discursive, or explain to us or explicate for us the discursive function of what is an author, not who is an author. All right. Now, let me get to the body of what I wanted to say. Okay, this is something, I'm not going to answer this, but this is something for us to reflect. Is writing, if we go back to reading Barthes and Foucault or even Derrida, do we think do we look at, can we consider writing itself, writing the scripture of writing, the script of writing rather, the script of writing or the act of writing itself as a kind of technology? Can we think of a paragraph as a perfect piece of machine? I'll give you just one clue, because I don't want to spend more time here. You know, when teachers ask students, we ourselves have been in school, and when we did something called a model essay, weren't we given a template that a model essay is to be answered in 250 words or 500 words? It has to have a beginning, it has to have a body, and it has to have an end. And therefore, the paragraphs need to be linked in a coherent manner. Well, what is it if not a template? And what is artificial intelligence doing? What do language learning models do if not give us templates? If not identify the patterns from data sets out there on the net, and then give us, and then regurgitate something that we call a text or a script. So what do we do when we go to make reservations on the IRCTC platform? The chatbot, what does it do? Well, dare I say that Disha, the AI bot is called Disha, isn't it? Disha means direction. Well, think about it. Who and what is giving us directions when you plan your next vacation trip and you go on to the IRCTC portal? Well, it's a chatbot, essentially giving us directions on the basis of what? On predetermined data sets, predetermined maps and itineraries and the best travel destinations. So, all right. Here are a few more posers. I told you my talk is going to be less about finding answers and more about raising questions. So, if we take another step forward into this talk and consider the premise that if ChatGPT is an author, then what kind of an author is it? Is ChatGPT a language machine, or can we consider author in relation to what? In relation to what we have been told by Roland Barthes and Michel Foucault 60 years back. I would say, I mean, the slide title is self-explanatory, that the birth of ChatGPT is also the rebirth of Roland Barthes. I find it very interesting, right? If you ask, if ChatGPT is an author, what kind of an author is it? Is there even a hypothesis? I mean, what can be the hypothesis? The hypothesis is, shall we find who is the author behind the words, behind the narratives that ChatGPT speaks? So we all know that, ChatGPT, how does it function? How does it do the author function? Well, it does by consuming megabytes of books, articles, codes, web pages from the internet. We know that it's a program whose algorithms train itself to mix and match and then produce, mind this word, synthetic texts. Not just texts, but synthetic texts that seem, of course, all too human. Remember the first time you tried something on ChatGPT? My goodness, it was such a wonder, isn't it? You felt this was your eureka moment or your aha moment, right? If you have used ChatGPT like I have and many others, it often feels uncanny how generative artificial intelligence recognizes which words must follow others, how it identifies patterns, and how it produces what we can call text. So the language processing algorithm of ChatGPT itself, I mean, is trained on large data sets of human written text. And therefore, it can generate text after text, time after time, mimicking, copying, or even imitating the style and content of any genre of writing that you want as a prompt. So when I gave ChatGPT a prompt, what did I give a prompt? Many of us here who have joined today are IQAC and NAC coordinators, aren't you? So one of the things that we often are told is to have a dedicated vision and mission statement for our colleges and for our universities. So I put a prompt. I tried ChatGPT by putting a prompt, asking it to prepare a mission statement for our university. So here are two responses. The first one is on the slide, but I also want you to take a look at the second slide. If you have already browsed, can I move to the second slide?
Yes.
All right. So here is my question, which was written by AI or ChatGPT, and which by a human. This is a test of the ingenuity of all IQAC coordinators.
It's very difficult to identify, sir.
Take another look at the first one. And then the next one. Well,
So was the first one, which is generated by AI?
And what makes you think the second one is as an act of human?
Actually, when you go to this ChatGPT, it will use some bombastic words, and when you go for some softwares like Zero GPT to humanize, it will just make those words simplified. So see, in the first slide, we can find some words like precincts. It is a word, leverage. So these are words which probably which is used by AI. I suppose. I do not.
Well, I'm not trying to out-trick you here, all right? Because when I did that, to my surprise, both were generated by ChatGPT. Both. But to my ears, at least to my ears, the first, the second one sounded more human. It appears to me as more direct. The one that the slide shows you, it appears to be more direct because it focuses on the student as a person, well-rounded, critical thinkers. It kind of spells out what the mission of a university ought to be, that it ought to prepare our graduates, it ought to prepare our learners to face challenges of the future. So, but both are generated by ChatGPT. So it is the algorithm really that that gives you the response to any prompt, isn't it? And it is able to do so because the program sees, on a personal note, it sees what you put on your Twitter handle, what you post on Reddit, what you do on FB, even the photos that you upload on social media, your blog, or the code that you open sourced, or the academic articles and journal papers that you access. Everything becomes a part of the data set. So, however, for me, the interesting question is that we who are netizens, we who are, on the World Wide Web, are we not, in a sense, each one of us, because ChatGPT uses what we write and what we put out in the digital commons, what is called the digital commons, are we not each one of us in a small way an author? Perhaps, more probably, are we not ghostwriters for ChatGPT? Are we not ghostwriters, I say? Are we not ghostwriting something already for ChatGPT? I mean, all the stuff that we put out on Siberia is after all collected and processed by the the algorithm. And clearly, of course, taking away the intentions or the subjectivity and the agency of us as individuals in the process. Okay. So might we not think that ChatGPT, even as it generates text after text at such lightning speed, does it not function like a mechanical but vampirish author? Does it not function like a mechanical but vampirish author that generates text not just by feeding, but also at the same time by destroying all authors, that is you and I, at one and the same time? I have no answers. I'm just asking you. But whatever I just imagined, whatever I just told you, seems pretty ghastly and ghoulish, isn't it? So coming back, let's probe the question a little deeper. How like or unlike is a bot from Barthes' author? Look, when I kind of went back to these two seminal essays and also read up everything that was being written on ChatGPT and also practicing ChatGPT, I mean, I saw that whatever ChatGPT was doing was, in a sense, literalization of many of Barthes' provocations about the future of writing as he saw it way back in 1968. Because back in 1968, in this, from another essay, From Work to Text, titled From Work to Text, he says that writing is the destruction of every voice, of every point of origin. So if ChatGPT is a kind of an author, can we say that it is not an author, it is a depersonalized author, or it is an unauthorized author? Because does it take your permission? You may, if you put up your essay or your paper, your recent paper, journal paper published on, of course, on the net, who knows that ChatGPT may already be taking a slice of that paper without acknowledging you. So it's quite probable. So if we are to think of ChatGPT as an author, then do we think of it as a depersonalized author? Because clearly, ChatGPT is not a sentient author, isn't it? I mean, there is no perspective to the writing that it creates. I mean, of course, it also, mind you, it also at the same time does a good job, a smart job of hiding implicit biases and prejudices that may be inscribed even in its algorithm. On the other hand, when we read texts, when we read works, let me say, when we read works created by a human author, we want to understand and identify a unique voice. We want to know not a standardized point of view, not a standardized perspective, not a universal point of view, but we want to read the work because maybe we want to agree or disagree, maybe because we want to contest or resist, maybe we want to navigate through all the ideas that are churned out in the narrative written by a personal author in order to raise questions. Because we do want to know, when we read an author's work, we want to know where the ideas are coming from. Because after all, we want to know if the author is being bitchy, if he's being euphoric, if she's being enigmatic in her writings. Can we pose such questions to, or can we identify or detect ChatGPT's generative text in such a sentient way? Well, I don't think as yet, because after all, I mean, in a sense, to take that question, is ChatGPT an author? Well, if ChatGPT is an author, shall we call it a depersonalized author or an unauthorized author? To the next question, that is ChatGPT and other LLMs, are they creating a different notion? Are they transforming human subjectivity and human agency in such a way that they should be making us think about not just the post-human, but what do we make of ourselves in the age of machine learning? What are we making? Well, Yuval Noah Harari, a favorite writer of mine, is already mapping this trajectory from the books that he has written, from Homo sapiens to Homo Deus. And then maybe I can, I may guess that he might very soon come up with a book called Homo AI. From Homo sapiens to Homo Deus, from Homo Deus to Homo AI. Well, if I can't beat him to writing a book before he does it, right? But then look at what he says. I have taken only snippets from both these books, that from a homocentric to a data-centric worldview. And then who are we? How do we define ourselves as human or post-human? Well, we define not because cogito ergo sum, as Descartes would have said, but we no longer can think like Descartes, but we have moved on in identifying our agency and subjectivity by like, share, and subscribe. So big data, friends, big data has become our religion, isn't it? And therefore, if big data is already happening, can Homo AI be far behind? All right. So perhaps then, if organisms have become algorithms, friends, then should we think of ChatGPT not as a single author, but perhaps a community of authors? AI authors, maybe? For a minute, I want you to think yourself in a room where there are 10 writers chatting and there are 10 AI chatbots. Well, on an online community platform, on a meeting such as this, hello, out of the 100 participants here, are there any bots sitting here in the meeting? Because it becomes fascinating to imagine that we join a virtual community where we are not able to detect, forget Alan Turing test, but we are not able to detect the captcha because AI has already got you gotcha. So, ChatGPT exemplifies, friends, the notion of the text as a very, very interactive and a very, very collaborative construct between human and technology. Now, I'm moving forward from, let us say, from slightly dissenting views, perhaps, that I may have given you the impression in the beginning, to something that I look forward to the interface or the to the increasing intensive interface between human and machine, between man and technology. And therefore, I mean, ChatGPT certainly can do a whole number of writing tasks pretty expertly, I would say. Because, I mean, after all, what does it do? It puts gazillions of sentences into a kind of a big blender and spits out a new text assembled from those bits and pieces of, well, shall we call it literary culture? So it's a kind of a paradox, isn't it? That ChatGPT and other LLMs, if we think about it, are we asking that can we think of them as being creative? Because the paradox is that they can be both original as well as not original at all. I mean, if you wrote your dissertation somewhere in 1998 or 2021, as I said before, then perhaps ChatGPT is already is already plagiarizing a part of your thesis or dissertation, right? Every time a new researcher gives a prompt on an area of your interest or a topic of your thesis. So ChatGPT, friends, therefore, thrives on the death of many authors, I'm taking you back to Roland Barthes. It does thrive on the death of many authors, not the death of one author. And so in this 1971 text, or rather essay, from work to text, where I said, that Barth made a very, very crucial distinction between work and text, because a work for an author, what is it? I mean, it expresses the intention of the author, what we call the autobiography of the author, what we call the intentional or the pathetic fallacy of the author and the reader. On the other hand, Barth deliberately superscribes the word text with T in capital, because Barth's text, what he calls writerly text, not readerly text, but writerly text, and the author as a scripter, it is precisely what chatbots are doing, maybe on a lesser scale, or on a lesser degree. And what does it mean, really? What does it mean in line with our post-structuralist thought? Well, it means that it is a play, it is an endless play of signifiers. It is an endless play that is unrestrained by an author's intention, or a script's or a text limitations. Because for Barth, as the quotation, as the two quotes on the slide show, that for Barth, a text is a multidimensional space. Isn't it the same as it is for an AI or a chatbot or an LLM? Because after all, what Barth said in 1968, that a text is a fabric of quotations resulting from 1,000 sources of culture, isn't what a ChatGPT does, echoing the same idea, maybe in a less functional and a more mechanical way? Okay. So this was something that I tried out with my students in a master's class. I was teaching them William Carlos Williams' famous poem, The Red Wheelbarrow. Right. So I read out the text, and I actually asked them to open up ChatGPT and give it a prompt. What prompt? Well, the same prompt to write a poem in the same style as William Carlos Williams' The Red Wheelbarrow. And guess what? I mean, the results were like this. I'm showing you only two versions that my students shared in the class. One version 1, amidst the orchard's vibrant hue, besides the rustling leaves, a single apple. Hey, is it Robert Frost or is it Wordsworth? How far away is this version? How far away is this version from Carlos Williams's Red Wheelbarrow? So when I told ChatGPT rather angrily, I couldn't conceal my irritation that what you have given is certainly not in the style of a Williams's poem. It said, forgive my earlier response, and I thank you for your patience, and came up with version 2. Now look at that version 2. So much depends upon the flickering candles dancing light beside the window softly bright. Hey, it sounds nice as a rhymester, which you could entertain school children of 7th and 8th standard. But they certainly did not amuse my students of the master's class. They said, where is the ambiguity, for example, of Williams's poem that makes the poem so very interesting? Where is the a text, remember, for Roland Barthes as well as for Michel Foucault, is something that speaks in many, many meanings, in many, many voices. Multivalency and multivocality is what and what is ChatGPT throwing up? I say ChatGPT is bullshitting by giving us this gibberish. So, hey, does it mean that it is the end of the road for ChatGPT? At least for the time being, ChatGPT, I would say, is giving us a sigh of relief. It's not creative. It is functional. It is mechanical, but not quite out there to be called even a depersonalized author in the Barthian sense. Okay. How much time do we have, Kaviyarasu?
Sir, you can proceed, sir.
All right. Well, maybe then I'm going to draw your attention to the one that unfortunately the resolution has blurred it. But this was something that I read in 2017 and 18, I guess. It's called One the Road. The image on the center is titled One the Road. It's an interesting exercise. It's an interesting book. Well, one wouldn't even call it, yeah, it is written by an AI, but produced by a human. In 2017, this guy named Ross Goodwin, who is an American teacher, a teacher in an American university, I mean, he tried to do an experiment, a thought experiment. What he did was he kind of did a road trip. He did a road trip much like the beatniks, that is Jack Kerouac did way back in 1968, 69, or 70. Remember the classic work that came out of this road trip that Jack Kerouac did with postmodern writers like William Burroughs and Allen Ginsberg, right? He called it The Road. Now, what Ross Goodwin was trying to do was to kind of revisit, do the same kind of trip, but this time with artificial intelligence support. He had a webcam, he had a neural language processing program hooked onto his laptop, and he was giving GPS positions of the locations that he revisited, much like trailing Jack Kerouac's journey in 1968, the road trip that he made with William Gibson and William Burroughs and Allen Ginsberg. So you got to read up on that. However, interestingly, once the AI came out with this ridiculous title called "One the Road," here is what Ross Goodwin concluded from this thought experiment of revisiting a classic text by remapping a real road trip taken by Jack Kerouac and the Beatniks in 1968, and to see what ChatGPT, or rather not ChatGPT, what artificial intelligence could do, what large language models could do. And this part of his conclusion is what I have put at the bottom, where he says, in the future, when this text becomes more sophisticated, note the word more sophisticated, it's a warning. If you see patterns like this, it may not have been written by a human. I mean, after Goodwin allowed an entire text to be generated by AI, his conclusion was that it wasn't really good enough, that you could still see through what artificial intelligence did because it wasn't half as good or no good at all trying to replicate. It did a poor job in replicating Jack Kerouac's classic road trip nonfiction work called The Road. So, I mean, if ChatGPT is to be thought as an author or a scripter, even in the Barthian sense or even in the Foucauldian sense, then clearly it still is way off, shall I say, off the radar. All right. But what does it tell also about the reader? Don't forget that both Barthes as well as Foucault, and for that matter, even Derrida, were emphasizing the intensive, interactive, and dynamic role played by the reader. So we have the two very famous pronouncements by Roland Barthes, that the birth of the reader must be at the cost of the death of the author, and a text unity lies not in its origin, but in its destination, which means a text unravel, it creates, produces, and generates its meanings only when it reaches we readers, you and I. So, but then what kind of a reader? What kind of a reader do we place in terms of artificial intelligence and ChatGPT? Do they subscribe to the same kind of ideas of readership and reader that Roland Barthes and Michel Foucault formulated? Well, they're both similar in one sense, but different in many ways. Because remember that, after all, artificial intelligence or ChatGPT does create a new breed of readers. What do I mean by a new breed of readers? Well, we become like groupies. They create readers like groupies. They are like, ChatGPT readers are like quasi-authors as well. I previously had told you that we are ghostwriters for ChatGPT. But and so in wanting, or rather in giving a prompt to ChatGPT for a piece of text that we want or a piece of information, what we are doing is to play a dual role of both author or scripter as well as reader. So a ChatGPT user, to me, appears to play a double role, both as a writer, that is, as a contributor. The moment you give a prompt, the prompt itself, friends, also becomes a part of the data set of the algorithm of AI. So, and also we are also playing the dual role, not just of a writer or a scripter, but we are also playing the role of a consumer, the reader as a consumer. And herein lies the difference between what Barth and Foucault thought of a reader. I'll come to that in a little. Okay. All right. So let's quickly move on to what Mr. Michel Foucault had to say. To Foucault, remember the essay, What is an Author? He clearly, ChatGPT, when you go back to the essay, What is an Author by Foucault, one easy distinction to be made between Foucault's author function and ChatGPT as a depersonalized author is that ChatGPT is not a sentient. It certainly is not what Foucault thought of an author to be. What was Foucault's central idea about an author? That an author is a function and an authorship is a social and political and cultural construct. Therefore, the very idea of who is an author or what does an author do historically changes from time to time and from place to place. There is no universal standard authorship. And yet one may argue that ChatGPT demonstrates one very vital idea that Foucault elaborated in this essay. And what was it? The apparatus of power. The apparatus of power. Foucault coined this word, apparatus of power, remember, to conjoin the operation of power with knowledge and knowledge with power. Apparatus of power also, Foucault referred to the myriad ways in which power, he believed, exerts itself in any society. For Foucault, power is something that is both visible and invisible, direct and indirect. It has a capillary action. And therefore, even our institutional regimes, part of his apparatus of power and regimes, what he called power regimes, included, for example, education, law, prison, medicine, industry, and certainly the market. So so when you think of ChatGPT, well, is ChatGPT also, is it a new millennial evidence of the role played by the Foucauldian apparatus of power? Yes, it does. It does in very, very obvious ways. For example, we all know that ChatGPT is the product of a private company. I mean, it is the product of a capitalist industry, of a consumerist society. Its operation is embedded within the discursive power exerted by corporate as well as legal systems that have been protecting OpenAI. And that Foucault describes as regimes of power. OpenAI, I mean, the company that owns ChatGPT, I think it has not yet monetized ChatGPT. I'm not sure. But then it has been made available for free since Feb 2023. But then there is no guarantee that ChatGPT may not go the X way, as Elon Musk did to Twitter. Friends, we must understand what I'm trying to say, the connection that I'm trying to make between ChatGPT and other AI language generative programs of today with the Foucauldian concept of apparatus of power or power regimes that he outlined in his essay, What is an Author? We must understand that the processes unleashed by ChatGPT proves Foucault's both Foucault's and Barth's idea that authorship has always been tightly controlled and dominated by market forces, even going back to 16th and 17th century. I mean, the author is simply a function of a consumerist capitalist society and maybe other socio-cultural discourses. And finally, I mean, there is also something, something to really worry about, the possibility of the abuse of the generative power of LLMs. Think about it. By controlling the huge database, is not ChatGPT, is there not a threat that ChatGPT might end up doing something like a Orwellian thought control as well as doublespeak? The things that George Orwell said in 1984. I mean, LLMs and AI definitely can organize. It is already organizing. It is being made to put in use by the industry in such a way that it can organize, it can manipulate, it can gloss materials that are not in sync with company protocols. Well, forget company. Well, the American presidential elections are tomorrow. Think about what kind of role and how visible as well as direct as well as indirect roles artificial intelligences are playing in this politics of power. So, yes, greater the use of technology, friends, it is a kind of a universal truth that greater the use of technology, the greater is the scope for its misuse as well as abuse, isn't it? So, all right. So what are the implications of what we have discussed today? I come to the last part of my talk. Well, if, as Barth said, that it is only language which speaks and not the author, then what ChatGPT and other LLMs are doing so far are they are merely performing writing tasks. But in the performance of these writing tasks, they are already creating trouble, particularly for the job, in the job market, isn't it? I mean, you just have to take a look at these images which have been making news for the last year and a half about right from the Writers Guild of America going on strike, about Hollywood kind of terminating the services of so many scriptwriters and payrolling, well, not payrolling, but taking the help of ChatGPT or other such AI. So, in a sense, therefore, friends, what about ChatGPT in our academic world? Many of us already are referencing ChatGPT for our research, isn't it? And I say this with a bit of a caveat, with a bit of a caution here, because in 2022, there was a famous, or shall I say an infamous case that came out from a researcher's use of AI. This researcher, he was in a New York State University. He submitted a paper to a very, very reputed journal, claiming it to be his original work. And he had titled the paper, interestingly, or ironically, he had titled the paper as the poetics of artificial intelligence. The poetics of artificial intelligence. Which was essentially about how the use of ChatGPT, how ChatGPT can be used to analyze literary text. Well, sounds good, but the journal reviewers found that the paper itself was actually generated by ChatGPT. Initially, the researcher, of course, denied. By the way, his paper, despite the reviewers detecting, was given the green signal, and it was published. It was published because the reviewers themselves wanted to play a thought experiment to see how did the research community and the academic world receive this particular paper. Well, that thought experiment boomeranged on the researcher because the reviewers, the journal editors got a lot of feedback from many of their subscribers and their contributors saying that this is a plagiarized piece. It is a machine-generated research paper. Well, they prove their point. So this case, friends, is a reminder of the potential dangers of relying and using solely on AI in an academic context. I mean, AI-generated text, as many of us would have seen, many of us have been using it also, can be very, very convincing. But and sometimes it is indeed difficult to distinguish AI-generated text from human-generated text. However, it is important to remember that AI-generated text is not even a fact checker. It is not even good or authentic as a fact checker. And it can only use something that that might put you to the risk of plagiarism. Of course, there are already gatekeepers. There is AI, anti-AI softwares that are there, licensed as well as free softwares. And journals in our academia, journals and book publishers are already taking firewalling in order to detect any AI-generated text. So, all right. This was a WhatsApp post. The one at the bottom is something that I was very, very, I liked this post. It said, "We don't need AI to make art. We need AI to write emails and clean the house and deliver the groceries so humans can make more art." Artificial intelligence cannot be a substitute for human intelligence at no point, isn't it? There is a book written by, there's a science fiction novel I'm reminded of by Neil Stephenson. It's called The Diamond Age, where it's a futuristic novel written some 10, 15 years back, where Stephenson describes an automatic teacher, much like the AI tutor that I began my talk with. He calls it Primer. And, in the novel, we see that this artificial tutor, Primer, can do what our fictional AI Aristotle can. I mean, both can preload our students with knowledge, both can customize information and learning methodologies according to individual and collective learning needs. But here lies the catch, friends, something that I believe will be close to your heart as well as mine, that neither can actually give what a human teacher can and does, because we are here not just to give learning to our students, are we? We are here to give life to our students. We don't teach students for merely life, for a livelihood or a gainful employment. We teach them lifelong learning, in a sense, learning that has no ends, no full stop, isn't it? So at least for now, we can say that artificial intelligence or chatbots or LLMs, as of now, they cannot teach learners how to ride a cycle or how to tell a joke. Can he? Can ChatGPT or any other AI do that? And I dare say that not even the most sophisticated AI will continue to evolve. It will become more and more sophisticated as the years roll by. But my guess is that even the most sophisticated AI of the future can never replace the intelligence and wisdom of a teacher. So what is the way forward, friends? What do you think is the way forward? Well, have you read Mary Shelley's Frankenstein? I'm sure many of you would have. I remember her story. In her story, Frankenstein is a brilliant scientist who learns to create life by cobbling together body parts from stolen cadavers stolen from the cemetery, from the graves. But what he creates in the story, turns out to be a nightmare. He's so appalled at the end of the story, he's so appalled by his own creation that he wants to destroy the freak, the monster that he has created. Now, for me personally, the real question that Mary Shelley makes us ask through her story is not what we humans can make, but what do we do with what we have made? The question that we must ask ourselves is not what we make, but what do we do once we have made what we have made? Friends, artificial intelligence is already here. The challenge is, what do we do with it? What will we do with it? Because AI is rapidly transforming the landscape of art, literature, and education. So are we going to take responsibility for it, or are we going to forsake it like Frankenstein? Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Of course, it was really mesmerizing. And thank you so much for such a fascinating and insightful lecture. You have given us so much to think about regarding the role of artificial intelligence in our current scenario. And I really wonder the way you begin discussing the mixed feelings people have owing the AI, where some see as revolutionary, where the other worry about its impact on creativity and what is that, a threat. And that is from then on, you just started and
No, I hope I've not expanded my discourse beyond people's sleep time or dinner time.
yes, sir. So of course it was quite engaging, and it was a feast for yeah. Of course, it was something new in a different perspective, sir. So the way you brought in Barthes' Death of the Author in helping us understanding the AI and how ChatGPT has formed a kind of new kind of author without any kind of personal identity, taking away taking everything from us and pretending as if giving everything new to us and whatever we need. So it is something which was brainstorming, sir. And you also brought in the concept of the Foucault's idea of the author function, through which you explained the how AI, especially tools like ChatGPT, is influenced by powerful corporates and market forces. And also your lecture, which focuses on the AI's potential to control and shape what we think, in a way similar to what George Orwell he wanted about in 1984, his kind of futuristic writing. And it was, sir, your talk, before we comment on your talk, I just thought of opening the floor for question and answer. And already there are a lot of comments then and then when you when you presented, we find a lot of comments on the chat box also. I suppose you can also see that, sir. And now let me open the floor to question and answer session, and we can have discussion. And as the sir said, we can have this very briefly for about 10 minutes, so that we can see that the seminar gets over by 9 or 9:05. So I invite the participants to share their questions and their reflections. For those who are in Zoom, you can feel free to raise your hands or type your questions in the chat window. If you raise your hands, you can also unmute you, and you can also ask directly. YouTube live audience, you can also type your questions there in the chat box. We can present it instead of you. So, Mr. Muhammad Osman, you can unmute.
Good evening, Dr. Prantik. Thank you for this wonderful presentation. It was a treat to the audition. However, although I'm not very tech savvy, however, I have a question here. You said there are filters which can identify the papers written through AI, ChatGPT. But I already know some people who produce a paper or a research paper through ChatGPT, take that paper to somewhere known as Quillbot and ask it to rephrase the same paper or maybe paraphrase or summarize it further. Quillbot completely re-explains the same language, and then they get a paper which cannot be traced anywhere that it has been plagiarized or it has been copied from anywhere. Can you just shed some light on this?
Well,
and such kind of papers have already been published by some people, I know.
Well, there is a distinction to be made also between quality journals and predatory journals. After all, you and I have been part of the academia, I believe, for quite some time. And so the filters that you talk about, at least in my case, being a teacher and a researcher for a few decades now, I have kind of my inbuilt sensors which alert me to some obvious errors and fallacies that creep in, especially if a researcher is relying solely on any artificial intelligence or any LLMs. Look, technology is going to get more and more sophisticated, but so would also, and therefore its users or its abusers also are going to be much like the smart cookies. Every time you open up a platform or a website, there are always smart cookies, isn't it? But at the same time, I also believe that gatekeepers and gatekeeping will also ensure that there is no discount or there is no premium to good scholarship. Much before artificial intelligence came on the scene, well, you and I know that there are journals and journals which publish for. I mean, you give them money and they publish you, isn't it? So there are predatory journals everywhere. I think the bigger question really is so not to look at, not to form or judge ChatGPT. It's like, not to judge or form an opinion on ChatGPT as though it was the originator of all things good, innovative, and creative. After all AIs, at least so far, are tools. They are tools that and we can use them as tools even in the classroom with our students. Well, you cannot actually prevent students or for that matter researchers from using artificial intelligence. But there is a good use of it and there is a bad use. I'll give you one example. The assignments that I give to my students at the master's level, I do ask them to go on to ChatGPT or even other LLMs. And first of all, we do give it a prompt on a given topic to see the kind of text that ChatGPT is capable of generating. And then we take some ideas. Some of the ideas are good, by the way. I mean, some of the references or some of the associations or connections that ChatGPT does is what we do also when we do a Google's or any search engine, when we go on to any search engine or for that matter to Wikipedia. So there is nothing actually new that ChatGPT is doing, but what it does is to facilitate the process of referencing probably 10 texts or 10 books at the same time by giving us the synopsis of it. It is for you and I, as well as for our students and research scholars, for us to make the most, not to imitate or ape what ChatGPT has produced, but to take them as sounding boards, the ideas that it puts forth, that ChatGPT puts forth as a sounding board or a launching pad to come up with our own perspectives and points of view. I think this is the way forward. this is the way forward, that as more and more technology and everything that we do in life becomes mediated through technology and artificial intelligence becomes more and more immersive, the real road forward is to blend or make a combination or blend technology, more and more technology with human intelligence. We cannot, do away with artificial intelligence. That would be wishful thinking. We cannot firewall our students from going to LLMs. But what we can do is to continuously point out to them that creativity is something that is not just thinking out of the box, but also thinking out of ChatGPT. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Sir. Sir.
Yes,
sir. It was really an impressive presentation, and you threw many innovative ideas in the context of ICT and these LLMs. Sir, my question is, after the birth of AI and all these tools, what is the role of a translator? Is it the death of translator, or how do you interpret it, sir?
No, I don't think so. I don't think it is the death of the translator. By the way, I mean, whenever we kind of throw these phrases, whether it is the Barth's death of the author, or Nietzsche's death of God, or the death of the translator or the interpreter, I think we need to think beyond the corporeality of it. Once again, what I just said in the context of research to the earlier questioner applies equally well to your question. Translator, yes, it can, to translate. After all, a translating machine has been there for donkey's years. We didn't have to wait for artificial intelligence. But then, translation also requires not just a knowledge of both the target language as well as the host language. It requires creativity. And many a thing is lost in translation when you are resorting only to artificial intelligence, isn't it? How does a machine translator, how can a machine translator, no matter how much of a data set it has on both languages, how can a machine translator ever capture the nuances of a complex text that a human translator does? So I think you are safe. I think if you are into translation, right, you are safe. And there certainly cannot be the death of a translator or the death of an interpreter. What I would argue actually is that it would if you were to use ChatGPT and other LLMs as a tool, then it actually facilitates the process of translation.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, sir.
My pleasure.
Good evening.
A couple of hands.
Hello, sir. Can you hear me?
Melvin, yes.
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir. This is Melvin from Vivekananda College. Sir, your session was so engaging, and your deep understanding and Barthes and Foucault were really impressive, sir. Thank you so much for your time with us today, sir.
Thanks.
So you've said ChatGPT strives the death of many authors. In that vantage point, I would like to ask you two questions, sir. How are we to define authorship in the age of AI? And my second question is, do you think AI's role as a content creator affects or damages the morale of human writers and their process of creativity, sir?
I'll answer, Melvin. I'll answer it in a very simple way. Right?
Yes, sir.
In fact, I'll combine my response to both your questions together. In a sense, think about it. Next time you are asked to give a report or plan a meeting with an agenda and also write down the minutes of the meeting, that is something pressing on you. On the other hand, you just have a half-finished story that you want to complete by the end of this week. All right. So let us figure it out. On the one hand, you can easily take the help of ChatGPT or any such LLM. I'm not a commission. I don't earn my commission from ChatGPT. So, but you can easily take the help of ChatGPT to do something which is very functional and mechanical, dull. You could say dull and dry, right? And do what is required in setting the agenda of the meeting or writing the report of the meeting or doing the minutes of the meeting. After all, you are reporting. It's a report. On the other hand, when it comes to writing or finishing your story, I think you would go back to your writing desk, all right? And you would not want any human or non-human to disturb you in the process of creativity. Yeah, you can actually take the help of ChatGPT also in storyboarding, what we call storyboarding. For example, like many authors, many writers are already doing. They write, they probably have 4 chapters of a half-finished novel, and they go to ChatGPT to ask, what could possibly be the 5th chapter like? However, let me also tell you that I have done that. But the results have been more than disappointing, because the 5th chapter, ChatGPT does it in very, very predicative and predictive ways. It'll take the storyline, your storyline, remember, it will take your storyline in a direction which has already been done to death many, many times. You see, you must understand that an author does not die, nor does a translator or an interpreter dies with the coming of AI. What dies are actually the templates, the already data sets. Because every time you put something, you think out of the box and you think out of ChatGPT, and yet you put it out there on the World Wide Web, what it does is you become the originator and the creator. You become one among, shall I say, the original authors who are contributing to the template or the data set that ChatGPT will use in the years to come. So, complex as the scene is, I find there is no reason for us to lose heart or to be cynical. You see, when radio arrived, we were saying the same thing. Or for that matter, when television arrived or the first computers arrived, we said, oh my God, these are machines that are going to kill creativity. Well, the human brain or our gray matter simply refused to gray. So long live Gutenberg and long live authors, right? Creativity will never die. It may come out in different forms, right? It may be even a collaboration or an interface, as I said earlier, between humans and technology. But what's the harm, therefore, in such collaborative ventures? So go ahead and write a report for your college using ChatGPT. But if you want to do a good quality paper, then well, put your ideas through ChatGPT, but then spin your own thoughts. Thank you.
The last question, Bhaskar. I think he has left. And
Madhumanti is asking,
Madhumanti.
she has a question.
Thank you, sir, for allowing me the opportunity. So quickly, I would ask you this question. First of all, thank you again for this enlightening session on AI, on generative AI. Sir, my question is, supposing we use AI for literary criticism. So I've tried that. So what would be the efficacy of AI in literary criticism?
You've already answered. In a way, Madhumanti, you've already answered the question.
So because I tried, practical criticism. Can AI do practical criticism? So we don't know any historical stuff around the poem, and we only do a structural analysis of a poem. Can AI do that? Or can we put some, certain theoretical perspectives in which AI can criticize a certain poem or a certain work of art? So If you can throw some light on that, sir.
Yeah, like you, even I have tried, I've tried once again as a thought experiment. When we do different theoretical approaches, let us say a formalist school, when we are teaching our children about a formalist school of criticism, or what we call the new criticism or feminist criticism or post-colonial, ChatGPT does come up with some amazing results, by the way. I mean, you put a text, let's say like white Sargassy, which I incidentally teach in one of the semesters, Jean Rees's White Sargassy, which again, as you probably are aware, is a rewriting of Jane Eyre, isn't it? So when you look at what ChatGPT does, it gives you, like I said, it gives you some interesting, provided your prompt has to be very precise, it gives you some interesting results because it once again, using its data sets, what it probably reveals to you is that you might think of feminist criticism, let us say third wave feminist criticism, and you're thinking about a Naomi Wolf. It brings in Naomi Wolf. It brings in Alice Walker. It brings in Gayatri Chakravarti Spivak. But it also brings into the conversation, into a chat, certain thinkers whose works probably you are not aware of. Names that probably you've not come across your research. And what it does, therefore, it triggers you, it kind of catalyzes you to look up a text, the title of a book, or the name of a feminist thinker that you probably are not aware of. And it saves you time, therefore. It saves you time because it brings into your own terrain of references, works and authors that is, that not even Wikipedia will throw at you, not even a Google search will throw at you. So what it does is that it creates a synopsis. In a sense, it creates a synopsis, or shall I say a literature review. It gives you a handy literature review. But then it also shows you pathways, because the minute it references something that you have not read, then what it does is it opens up new pathways for you to look up. In that sense, we are using ChatGPT as a very, very versatile tool, right? And I think that is truly, a good ChatGPT becomes a handy companion to have by your side. What you do, however, is not to accept everything that ChatGPT throws at you in the name of even third wave or second wave feminists on its face value. You do not take it blindly, because many of the arguments or ideas that it produces in the shape of, let us say, theoretical positions, may be underpinned by references that have no factuality. That can also happen, right? So one must always be on the guard not to treat everything that ChatGPT throws up as authentic, legitimate, and veracious, because its factual references also can go wrong. So like I said earlier in my talk, that ChatGPT can be a fact checker, but only to a limited extent. So that's the caveat. Right.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you, dear friends. And since it is already 9:12 and many are in a hurry, so I think it is time to wind up the session. Of course, even though we are very much eager to hear more from Prantik sir, definitely it will be done in another occasion. And sir, your lecture really has been both eye-opening and inspiring, challenging us to engage deeply with AI's growing presence in our life. Thank you for pushing us to think about the future of creativity and authorship with such passion and clarity. So once again, thank you so much, sir, for the truly thought-provoking lecture. You have highlighted how AI challenges our ideas of authorship, creativity, and control, showing us its vast influence on both our personal and cultural levels. Your insights remind us to approach AI with both curiosity and caution, approaching its potential with understanding its impact over our present and future. You are, of course, you are really, you have really done a great job, sir. And we are for this grateful for this enriching lecture on the future of creativity and knowledge. And sir, personally, I thank you, and also on behalf of the Department of English, Vivekananda College, I thank you for your readiness to join us today and for making this event a grand success. So thank you so much.
It was my pleasure. You don't have to thank me, Kavira. So thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. And I also thank all the participants for your thoughtful questions and active involvement, though there are a lot of questions here and in YouTube. Of course, I will send those questions to sir, and sir, you can take your time to answer those questions. Of course, thank you so much once again, sir. And thank you so much, participants, for your contribution. Of course, it reminded us of the power of a collective reflection and shared learning. And to formally close today's seminar, I would like to invite Dr. A. Suresh, Associate Professor of English, Vivekananda College, to deliver the vote of thanks. Sir. Dr. Suresh, sir. Kindly unmute. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I deem it my privilege to have the opportunity to deliver the vote of thanks at the end of this enriching international seminar on arts in the times of Hamlet's Android phone and the AI's Aristotle. On behalf of the organizing committee, I would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to all those who made this event successful and memorable. First and foremost, I thank the management and Dr. T.S. Jayanti ma'am, the principal of Vivekananda College, Kanniyakumari, Tamil Nadu, for their kind concern to organize the seminar. I am grateful to Dr. G. Parvati, Associate Professor of English, Bishop Heber College, Trichy, who readily accepted our invitation to be the chairperson of the technical session. I thank you, ma'am. It is my prime duty to express my gratefulness to Professor Prantik Banerjee, Professor of English, Hislop College, Nagpur. He has gained ocean of knowledge in various disciplines. He enlightened us by sharing his knowledge, which was highly beneficial to the participants across the country and other nations. I thank you, sir, on behalf of the management, principal, faculty members, and research scholars of Vivekananda College. I thank you, sir. I express my profound thankfulness to Dr. K. Kaviras, Assistant Professor and Research Supervisor, Vivekananda College, Agasteeswaram, for his painstaking efforts besides his busy schedule to organize the seminar for the welfare of the student community, research scholars, and faculty members. Thank you, Kavi. My special thanks to Dr. P. Sujata ma'am, Associate Professor and Head Department of English, Vivekananda College, Kanniyakumari, and the organizing team for their cooperation, constant encouragement, and support. I thank you all. The success of a seminar depends upon the valuable information and knowledge provided to the participants and the number of active participants. 1,052 participants have registered for the seminar. To make it clear, 1,036 participants from India, 9 participants from Nigeria, 2 participants from Oman, and 1 participant from Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Egypt, Indonesia, and Malaysia, respectively. I thank all the participants from India and abroad for your enthusiastic participation and making the seminar a successful one. I thank you all. Once again, a heartfelt thanks to everyone. We hope to meet you all at future events. Thank you. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, Dr. Suresh, sir, for your heartfelt words of appreciation and for acknowledging the efforts of everyone involved in making this seminar a success. As we conclude today's event, I would like to once again thank all of you, our distinguished speakers, our delegate faculty and staff, and our wonderful participants from across the world. So to tell the fact, in the beginning, we started this as a small seminar, but we didn't think it ended up with a kind of international level of participants. So it has become a grand success. So on behalf of the Vivekananda College and Department of English, thank you all for your time, your engagement, and your enthusiasm. We look forward to meeting you in the future seminars and continuing this journey of learning together. Have a wonderful night. Thank you once again for joining us. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, participants. Thank you. Thank you all. Those who have not submitted the attendance certificate, attendance form, please. Yeah, I think it is there in the chat box. I can also once again post it. It's there in the chat box. In YouTube, it is pinned in the chat box. Please check for that and fill the attendance form or the feedback form. Thank you so much. See you.